people that we support do bring us so much, and that gets overlooked a lot. But I see the people that I've worked with have really taught me about quietness and presence and the ability to be in the moment. And I've really appreciated that. So I think that's one of the things that's helped me. And I think on a very deep level, I've always found it interesting to consider what it really means to be human, and how people who have profound disabilities, I think they can really test and challenge our assumptions about what it means to be human. And I always think if a definition doesn't work for somebody with a profound disability, then it doesn't work. What we do know is that a large number of people with profound disabilities undergo medical treatment, thus would consider high risk of causing trauma. If you add to that the fact that somebody's got difficulties communicating and difficulties understanding what's going on, that's going to exacerbate the potential for trauma, not make it better. I think there can be a bit of a misconception that if somebody doesn't understand, it's not going to affect them. The body doesn't work that way, because we remember on a bodily level. So even if someone's got difficulties with memory and difficulties with thinking and cognition, their body will potentially literally remember what has happened to them, and that will be triggered again in other situations, or it will come back to them. They'll be reminded of that at some level, even if it's not at that sort of mental level. So there's very little research done specifically, but all of the research that we do know about them that has been carried out on trauma suggests that somebody with a profound disability would actually be at much higher risk of suffering psychological trauma from what's taken place. And our understanding of psychological trauma is now greater, because we realise that's not something that just exists within the mind, but it's very much ingrained within our body, and particularly through our nervous system. So regardless of how severe the learning disability is, we still have that huge risk of experiencing trauma. And one of the challenges we have is that with trauma, I think most people are familiar with a response that might look like a fight-flight response, that kind of that sort of familiar thing that people understand in terms of our fear response. But there are other ways that people can respond to traumatic experiences, particularly if they're not able to do anything at the time to manage that or to respond to that. So when particularly if someone's very powerless to deal with a situation where they're under threat, there is a risk that they'll go into more of a kind of withdrawal state, or even like a collapse shutdown state. So they're the people that I'm particularly worried about, because I think they're the people that we can easily miss. They might not be crying, they might not be showing outward signs of fear and anxiety, but that's possibly because their nervous system has reacted in a different way, and it's actually kind of shut them down in order to try to deal with that experience. But nonetheless, they'll still be experiencing pretty severe distress and anxiety. So we need to make sure that we kind of broaden our understanding of what to look for when someone might be suffering from trauma. Generally, we are rubbish at being able to identify our feelings. So Brené Brown, she describes a really quite comprehensive piece of research she carried out, where she asked people in the moment to be able to report how they were feeling, what emotion they were feeling. And the number of emotions that people were able to report was 3. And we need to look at different ways of being able to observe and tune into someone to understand how they're feeling, and not expect that to come from expression from them. It's a misconception that we can think our way out of some of these difficulties we're having, because actually our in terms of the way our brain biology works, it's our sort of very, very primal brain reacts first, way before that information gets up to the cortical part of the brain where our thinking takes place. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. Reading that book really gave me the confidence to set up NAC, Nurturing Effective Care, because reading that book, it's not a book written about people with learning disabilities, but it's a book about how the body responds, and how, therefore, even if somebody doesn't have words and language and a high level of cognition, there's still so much that we can do to support them when they might be suffering from difficulties with emotional well-being and of course trauma. So really reading that and understanding that there's so much around the way that we interact with one another and the way that our environment is set up around us and the senses. There's so much that we can do there that can help to soothe our nervous system, to help to kind of heal those traumas that we might have experienced. So that was a really sort of a turning point for me, and like I say, really sort of gave me the confidence, because although we don't have good research, we don't have enough research around people's needs with profound disabilities. There is a growing body of research, particularly from neuroscience, about trauma. And my view is that, and many of my colleagues as well, if this is right and works for people, why wouldn't it be right and work for somebody with a profound disability who first and foremost is a human being? Provide webinars and training courses that are now accessible through our website. One of those is on trauma, and is designed for parents or practitioners and professionals to help them to think through some of the neuroscience on trauma. And it's a really practical course, so half of it is dedicated to, okay, now we understand this a little bit better, what could we actually do to help? And our information is all designed to be stuff that can be implemented really safely. So there's nothing invasive. We're not talking about medicating people. We're not talking about doing anything that would be harmful. I mean, anything needs to be carried out by people who are sensitized to the person they're supporting and understand their particular needs, and used with sensitivity. But really sort of taking on board this idea that we do need to research more, we do need more understanding at that level, but actually that we know enough to be able to start doing some things that are potentially very safe and non-invasive that can help people start to feel better. We can do to help are really simple, and they are the kind of things, when you hug your child, when you spend time with them, when you're just there to hold their hand through difficult things that are going on in their lives, when you stay with them after that, when you're there whilst they're feeling distressed, we can think those things aren't as important as they are, but sometimes they're everything. And I think that's a really important message, that people don't feel like they're not doing enough. They're probably doing plenty, and they need to realise that and make sure that other people who are coming into their children's lives are on the same page and understand those really important things that they're doing to support as well.